He lived in Portsmouth.
Okay, you're recording.
We're recording. All right, we ready to go?
Bob is on his way, he should be here in
Well, let's
2
wait a couple
seconds.
minutes.
Okay, well, when we call a meeting, we kind of do this formally, then we'll do a pledge of allegiance to start the meeting, as we always do. Michael, will you lead us?
Absolutely. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We only have one item on the agenda, and that's the interview, Susan Parker for being a member of the PDA. And I just, if you don't mind, wait a couple more minutes to,
Yeah,
just
sure.
want to know, we're gonna get repetitious, been going all over that.
Can't seem to get used to this darn thing yet, but I will. All those engines roaring when I was a kid in those lobster boats just burned my ears out.
Well, that'll happen. It's sort of like people in my generation with the rockers, you know, the musicians.
No, I
By
wouldn't
the time
remember
they
that.
hit age 50.
I used to play bass, I remember that kind of stuff.
Well, that's what my brother did.
Yeah, did he?
Mhm.
No, we used to have these big 6-inch diameter exhaust pipes coming out of the side of the boat. And so when mine would tickle that little throttle, you could hear them all the way down the river. Used to win a lot of boat races with that boat.
Where did you have your lobster pots? Were they in the river or out to sea?
I started in the river when I was about 12. My father gave me 5 old beat up traps. He said, "No, you see what you can do with those." And he got me a skiff with no outboard. And I
You knew how to swim, presumably.
Yeah, I learned to row real early. Row down with the tide in front of the swimming pool,
Yeah.
follow my trap, lay them, wait for the tide to turn back and roll back. Hey, Bob.
This is Bob
This is Bob
Flanagan.
Flanagan.
Hi.
Morning.
Hi.
Morning.
That's
Sorry.
challenging water to learn to lobster in.
Well, my father said, if you can handle the river, you'll be able to handle outside. And then when I
Good.
got older, I started my own
Well, you've got
business.
those cross currents out there that are fierce.
Pledge of allegiance.
Time I got out of high school, I had 10 grand in the bank and was doing very well with the lobster business.
I love these stories.
It's hard way to make a living.
I know, it's.
Why don't why don't we get right into I know we have some questions of, Ms. Parker and, you know, I know it's gone through the town of Greenland and everything, and it's just waiting for a confirmation from us. But, I don't know what agreement you have with the selectmen in, Greenland, but we're much tougher.
Are you?
None of them are here, so I can say that.
Don't make me laugh, will you? I fell on my ribs and there's.
Well, you got the wrong guy to tell you.
Yeah, I know.
But I didn't know how you're gonna report, you know, once you get there, have they set up a procedure, or you're gonna do monthly reports, or?
Well, here's what my thought is.
Sure.
I would want to meet with both the Greenland board and you all. I can do it individually or together, probably doing it as a part of a regular meeting so not to chew up too much time. But figure out what process you want to observe. And I would put together a document at the end of an interview with you and with Greenland and come up with what I'm going to call rules of engagement unless someone invents a better title. And it will talk about how it is this is going to work. But I do think input that's specific and process-oriented is needed.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing that will happen in a shared seat like this is if you get engaged in issue A, B, C, D, and you don't have a process that will knit together the reporting out, then you're only doing about half the job. That's the way I see it.
Okay. Yeah, that's great, and we'll work on that, but I have just a few questions just for the record, Mike Marconi is here, he's our selectman, and his brother Gino is the head of the port.
Yes.
So I just put the names together so everybody know, I think that's not just make everybody aware of it. I think 2 or 3 of the big concerns personally I have is, we talked about it briefly, just kidding before, but the pollution that the PEAS has done, which falls under the PDA,
Yeah.
and I'm on the RAB committee, the Restoration Advisory Board at PEAS, which meets quarterly. on water and pollution and like that. But the big thing is, there's so much pollution out there that that's a big concern. Not only had it back 50 years ago or 70 years ago, whenever it was, when Pease came in, they took over half of Newington probably geographically. And they left us, and when they left in the 90s, they left us with a town full of pollution.
I'm familiar with the stories about the Haven Well and others.
Right, yeah, well, we still have that, it's ongoing, and Mike, you were out of the room, I said, you have a well, and it's been contaminated, and there's quite a few in this area down here. It comes down from the site where the burning was, site 8, and the water table comes down this way and goes to the bay, and it's contaminated quite a few wells. City water comes through, but there's some people out on it, they still want the well situation, so that's one. And the other thing is, in the last few years, I think the noise pollution has gotten better. The little red helicopters aren't aggravating people anymore. they went by, but there's still a talk that there's maybe the Air Force or the Guard or whomever it is, it might bring in some other the big helicopters, and that would be.
Those are big.
Those are big, and they're
I've been
noisy.
in them, I know.
And they're noisy, and I think the only place they might put them is in the north end of the strip, which would be near Newington, and would be kind of a pollution area. So I think just aware that, I know the Air Force or the government controls that, and they'll do what they damn please, but we wanna be on the side of caution, that we don't wanna give too much away if we don't have to make it the citizens uncomfortable.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there in Newington a group of citizenry that have, maybe a part of your group? I want to call it good neighbors to the Department of Defense, something like that?
No. You're looking at
Sometimes, this is it.
No, excuse me.
Okay.
Bob Blonigan is the
Hi.
newest member, and he's retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Guard with 39 years
Okay.
of service, and a former state trooper.
Then you know John Watson,
No, I
former commandant for the Air Guard,
don't. No, I don't.
before you then.
He was probably a lot of ranks above me.
He was actually. He was the head guy.
Okay.
He was from Concord and Hopkinton, sorry. I think dialogue, and I know feds can be, well, Glenn and I are former feds, but if you engage them, sometimes it's remarkable what can really happen. And I would think that given water is, one of your most precious commodities, that there would be reason here to actually create an ongoing dialogue, because that becomes a framework for later action.
That's true, yeah.
Well, I think that, Chief, if I may, Madam, Teddy and I have met, because Bob, we met with Senator Shaheen on the water issues, and we got more out of her than we had in a long time, because him and I
Yes.
buttonholed her really hard and said, look, we got a concern here.
That is extremely good,
Yes.
and this is a situation, we're surrounded in the media every single day with extremes of political partisanship. And when you're talking about water and things like this, that is beyond anything to do with partisan.
It's a necessity, absolutely.
Precisely, it's survival, it's surviving. So I would say that needs to be built on.
One of the other major concerns is is the privatization
Yeah,
of Pease. I know the governor has pushed for the privatization, and they've had a motion within the last 6 or 8 months at the PDA to do that. It was turned down by Peter Laughlin and I think Bob Allard and Peggy Lamson were against it, but it's eminent. I don't know what it is. We have great concerns because we own a hell of a lot more of the PDA than you people. You got a golf course. We got the town forest, we got the Arboretum Drive, we got the wells and everything else. So we're very concerned with what would happen there with the taxation, because everything from Sigala over this way is all in Newington. So know, there's some big buildings and some land and some roads and some sewage and some water and some, you know, a lot of things that we would have to evaluate.
To include the entire air guard base is on the Newington side.
And we do not receive any taxation from that, it goes to the state,
And
so,
that's eminent domain, probably.
I believe.
Way back it was on the domain, they took it all over, yeah.
Correct, it was, but part of the agreement was we only got a stipends for the policing, because we didn't have a full force or a full fire department at the time, which we do now, but, we do not receive any benefit from it,
Okay.
and we're told we can't do much, they can do what they want. We do have 2 developable lots over there we know about, and we're very cautious of how we do that, so.
Okay,
Just for your benefits, you'll know if we come down with our ties and jackets on, we're serious.
Right.
okay. When I meet with you, if I'm fortunate enough to be ratified, I would wanna go into a list of issues that are your burning issues.
Sure.
And and attach descriptions to those issues, not in a casual way, but in a seriously detailed way.
Right, right.
So I understand the implications of the actual issue. You know, you have to understand the small stuff in order to get to the big stuff.
Correct.
Good point, good point.
The noise, get back to the noise does affect us as we go with it, but it also affects Greenland. The whole seacoast area gets being driven by that.
Now, the new 46s they have.
I saw, the tankers?
Yes, ma'am, the KC 46. It's a lot quieter than the old KC 135, but they have transient aircraft come in, like the C5 that were doing touch and goes yesterday.
I saw those actually.
That was an individual plane that he just kept going around and around. That is out of Westover, Massachusetts. They come up here because the central Massachusetts airspace is too crowded, so they come up here
I
to
understand,
practice.
yeah.
And that's pretty common. Dover, Delaware does the same thing. Up and down the East Coast, they know that Pease is free airspace, so they fly here instead and do their practice.
Free because it's not cluttered up like it is further south.
Most of the airspace here in New Hampshire seacoast is high flyers that are on their way to New York or Chicago. They just transit up over us at 35,000 feet, not down low where they're practicing their touch and go.
No, you could count things on the C5 yesterday.
Yep.
I was out braking.
Yeah. And I'm not opposed to them practicing. Certainly they need to do their practice, but that is a concern for us. It was all over Facebook last night. All of our citizenry wanted to know, why there was so much noise yesterday. Was it a special drill? Were they, were they gearing up for war? We go from one extreme to another here. It's, are they just practicing are they getting ready to go to war? So.
Yes, well,
And a lot of people don't
we would not know on the ground what they're doing.
For all we know, when the C-14 of those tanker planes take off one right after the other, you're going to war, 'cause we saw it once before during the first Gulf War, scared the hell out of me. And I happened to be in Boxdale at the time, waiting to see when they were gonna get the base back to the state of New Hampshire. I was there as governor's rep. It was scary. Okay, it really
Yeah,
was.
it's pretty impressive, isn't it? The amount of power we have in those.
I was on one of them.
I know you were. And one other point too is, just for you to understand it, first plane to come in here, the first 46 was named as Spirit of Newington.
I like it.
I thought you might.
I do. I like that a lot.
We do have some.
We're still
drag,
waiting.
so I don't know whether we had some drag. I think it was some.
Yeah.
In the conversations with Senator Shaheen, do you get into issues with her about noise and noise abatement? You do, okay.
Well,
That would be something on our list.
I'm
but
sorry, Mr.
the
Chairman.
who's and what's.
We know that we have had a lot more inroads with her and seeing a lot more money being shaken from the federal coffers towards getting some of the mitigation for water down here, which is starting to show a little bit now. So I think that you'll see more as you get with the PDA, you'll see more of that coming in. Okay.
Her liaison with us has been a guy by the name of Peter Rice, is that right?
Yep.
He's, I think, out of her office.
He's a
Usually
liaison.
comes down when we have a question on like that.
I mean, he's a staff person for
Yes.
Shaheen.
Yes.
Okay.
she's also been instrumental in the widening of the Piscataqua River Basin.
That's right. That
The
would fall
dredging.
under the PDA too.
Right.
Yeah, the river.
That
I
is-
read the dredging report.
Yeah,
It's going through the state today, I believe, right?
Right.
right.
That should be, I think it'll be passed, I think from what I'm getting from the comments, it should go through.
Okay. Widening of,
And that'll
Peak
make, our report over here a lot more viable because it moves up more into the Newington section. Right now, the port of New Hampshire is Newington, not Portsmouth. If you look at the demographics of what's being done along the river, it's moved this direction. And we as a town and as a planning board have tried to keep it that way, to keep the viability of the going port on this end here. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
We just want you to know too that, we have an economic development committee that works on our, from the waterfront through from the Spalding to the waterfront is pretty much our, industry and business district. And they work closely with a group on Ps, which would be under your purview. And we like that. We like that they work closely. We like that the PDA, there's certain businesses, certain corporations that the PDA says, well, it just doesn't fit our business community on the air base, but it might fit in ours, and it may behoove Greenland to do the same thing.
well, that's right.
But, anything that spills over from the PDA, so to speak, our economic development committee likes to get.
When you say our economic development committee, that is a vehicle within the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, as a appointed board that we established 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Committee here in the
Yeah.
town. I don't know if does Greenland have anything similar to that?
No.
You may wanna think about it, we, if I may, Bob, it's
Yeah,
okay.
no, go ahead.
We also didn't load it up with just, the local people, we put some people from the mall on it, and some other people who were involved in businesses, so there was a real true spirit of working to see if we can enhance what we have for business, and to enhance more business in our direction. As you know, that's what's the livelihood of our town, I'm sure you understand that.
How many people do you have on that?
9.
9 people?
Yeah, and we're not, I'm not opposed, I'm not saying this publicly, at this point, but I'm not opposed if we wanted to expand a little bit, maybe put somebody from Greenland on it, we'd have to talk about it amongst the parties. It'll help you maybe do something if that's what you may wanna do. But any input we can have with the air base is always to me an asset, okay? I'm sorry.
Nope, you went right down the road I was going.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
I, just so you know, I have a strong affection, if you want to call it that, with the Department of Defense, but in all the years in Washington and the work that I did with employment and putting veterans back to work after they decommission, I know that the communication is highly specialized within the Pentagon, understatement. But I also know that sitting senators carry a huge amount of weight in the Pentagon. And they, and if you've got seniority as a senator, you can be virtually assured of being heard, not only in the Secretary of the Defense's office, but also within the Joint Chiefs. And you gotta have both of them typically working together. And one is political and one are the real pros in the Joint Chiefs.
Right.
And the budget in DOD has many, 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 many streams, almost like any large federal organization does. But the senatorial staff become specialized in how those streams work and where their actual touch points are. And because it all comes down to the relationships between highly qualified staff and the highly qualified staff on the other side of the DOD budget. Just so you know, that's how I think, but I respect that process and making that work for us. And you work for that, you work on behalf of small towns, which I think is very good that you have an economic development group, but putting the needs of Greenland and Newington into the mix, given that body of water there, and given the fact that it's already for years, 350 years, been identified as a strategic location militarily for a lot of reasons. You know, I mean, you can't argue with history. So that argues to me of really upping the relationship intensity in a positive way with the military. That ought to be friendly, because we live here.
Is there anything you'd like to bring up to us or question us if, you know?
Is there anything about PDA as you see it now that you think needs to be looked at?
The one thing I might mention is that the last time privatization was brought up by the board, there wasn't a notification to the town of Newington that that was taking place until the day before
Oh, Lord.
the vote. And this is a critical issue to the town of Newington, and we would look forward to your.
Okay, all right. Well, that to me, another thing I have learned in all the years of being in various aspects of government and making the programs I was responsible for work, is that A, it takes a village, and B, you've got to be transparent within the law, and you've got to open it right up. And you do that by being knowledgeable and being timely and by paying attention to details that relate to a bigger picture. And I would think that it's fairly fundamental that giving notices to towns who are the abutters, so to speak, and also within the geographical scope, that's basic. Adequate notice, basic. Yeah. What do you guys think?
I can't disagree with that.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and I know we're.
I mean,
we're
this to
looking
me
at
is not correct.
Yeah, we're looking at an air show this summer or closer to the fall, and we know virtually little to nothing about it. I know they have engaged our fire chief and they have engaged our police chief, and I think, you know, we're gonna have to talk to them and find out what they know, because we haven't been approached at all. I don't know about the town of Greenland.
I know the last year or so they did, we hardly knew anything about it. There was no communications whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's the key.
And you
And
know,
I'm a big proponent of the
Me
air
too.
shows, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when the military comes here to show off and show us what they can do air power wise, it's always a great event for the citizens to go out and see. I always said if the citizens of the United States knew how good our military was, they would be glad to pay their taxes on April
Exactly.
15th.
I agree with that.
yeah,
But the communication piece is,
Well,
you know,
I
when
will,
it gets down the waterfall, we don't even get the spray, so to speak.
I don't tolerate that well.
Well, we
Not
look,
in private business and not in public sector.
we look forward to communication.
Yeah, and
On a
I
regular
think
basis
Greenland
with
needs
you.
to be a part of all this.
Well, absolutely.
Probably the best way to start is to set up the format is Matt and Martha get together and work out some, so that you don't have a plan, we have a plan, and then, you know, it's all cross-legged, maybe sit
Work
down
together.
and if you wanna put a select, whatever, we can work it out so that there's a formal, informal, that we can talk and do it, but rather than running cross-legged with each other, I think it'd be better if we work together on this.
There's strength in municipal numbers.
Right.
Yeah, the old United We Stand, that goes a long way.
Yep.
So if it's both of us not against, but if it's both of us speaking, then the Air Force, the PDA will say, geez, you know, 2 out of the 3 neighbors we have are saying this, we probably should listen. And that's all we wanted, we just wanna be heard.
sure.
You have to be.
Anybody have any questions?
The Defense Department, make no mistake, they do air shows where it strategically advantages their case. And that's why it's in New Hampshire, and we know why.
All right.
It's a good selling tool, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Gentleman, the general that flew in the Spirit of Newington, he said how he got involved in it. He came to an air show back in the 60s, I think it was, and fell in love with the Air Force. And he retired as a full general from that. That goes to show you that it does work.
It does work.
It does work, and I'm very pleased to be part of it, I've always been a proponent of the Air Guard.
Right now, the director of the Air National Guard, the 3-star general, I believe they just promoted him to 4-star. His son is a captain, a pilot in this unit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So trust me, that young man was placed in this unit for a reason, because those planes are brand new, they're shiny,
They are
they're
a showpiece.
they are. And,
Yeah.
you know, the talk over there is, once those planes are operationalized, I mean, if you drove across the back road, McIntyre Road this morning, you only counted 10 of them. That's because 2 of them, the other 2, that makes it 12, are gone. And where they are is, out showing the plane off. Those planes will be at every air show in the United States, and the schedulers at Pete already have it down. Who's going, what plane, what tail number, and they shine up that plane and they shine up that crew, and they send it out to Illinois, Indiana, wherever those strategic air shows
Well,
are.
it's called strategic senators.
Yep, it's definitely strategic messaging.
That would be Duckworth.
They're showing the United States of America what they just bought for X number of $1 billion. So those planes are gonna be on the road, and we know it, but just having his son in that unit shows you the focus that was put on those.
Very interesting.
And the only thing he didn't tell you was that, this was the first time a guard unit got a first off the runway plane, the first time this happened. So that goes to show you what this is really strategic.
But
I think Senator Ayotte was on, even as a first-term senator,
Yes,
she
she
was
was.
on Senate Armed Forces Committee.
Before this plane, I really can't say that, because this plane's probably been on the drawing board for 40 years, but there was talk at Pease Air Base. I mean, I retired Lieutenant Colonel, but when I was a lieutenant, I remember them saying, we need to position ourselves to get ourselves on the top of that list to get the new plane. And that work started 20, 30 years ago. And it continues to this day. There's a lot of strategic thinkers over there, and they work very closely with both senators' offices and all the representatives from New Hampshire. And that was a drive. We had states like Maine, the 101st up at Bangor. They're mad at New Hampshire because we work so well with our senators. And they're mad at New Hampshire because New Hampshire, it's like anything, location.
It is. Well, they've got the Dow Air Force Base, and this is Pease, then there was one up in Loring, and I think that's growing
Loring.
dandelions right about now.
Right.
But Dow, which is now Bangor, they suffer from location. They're too far north.
Yep.
Half of the guys that are in this unit are airline pilots, so they're close to Boston. So when they're not in for their weekend duty, they're flying for United, Delta, American. Maine, they're 4 hours up.
No, I know.
Airline pilots don't want to live that far up. So they suffer from recruiting.
Yeah.
They can't get local kids into the unit.
Yeah.
Most of them don't qualify. We're here in New Hampshire. We recruit from Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. So we get a lot of talent here. And like I said, it's location. Pease is a primary location, and they take advantage of it. But states like Maine and even Massachusetts, they're envious of the relationship we have. And I think, I know for us, and we want to continue that relationship with our Senate's office.
Continue but strengthen.
Exactly.
Trust but verify and strengthen.
When we flew to Barksdale, if I may just add a little bit, the Adjutant General from the state of Maine is a 2-star Air Force, and he was mad because most of the guys around here were all from the state of Maine. We're on a plane with him. He said, how'd you get all these people away from us? He says, that's our secret.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, location is everything. My father ran the airport in Millinocket back in the 50s.
Wow.
And it was right after the war. Anyway, long story short, I grew up sort of in an airport milieu at home. And the business with Dow has always been that it was too far. Loring may as well be in Canada. Glenn was based up there. I mean, he knows that it's a different culture. But they have typically very strong senators in Maine. And Collins is not a foreigner either to what goes on that influences our economy here with the Portsmouth Navy Shipyard.
Oh, yeah.
Which is of course not in Portsmouth, it's in Maine. all that aside, she can be ecumenical for states if you give her a chance. You know, and I know that she and Shaheen work together and have for a long time. Susan has been in office a long time now.
Bring up any issue, whether it be the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, which is just off of this picture,
Yeah,
all the way to P's, the PDAOPs, and you will get both of our senators or representatives chiming in. They're both
they
very.
make the papers every time.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Now,
what-
now Massachusetts doesn't care because they have their own old bases to worry about. They spend a lot of their political time.
Well, we've gotta take care of us.
But I think our Senate group does do a very good job, and we're certainly interested in keeping it that way, if not enhancing it.
Well, I think we ought to have a motion, Michael.
Absolutely. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Susan B. Parker in concert with the town of Greenland, the newly created Newington PDA seat established by House Bill 243 in the 2019 House legislative session.
I second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote. So,
Welcome
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
and,
you for your votes.
And let us know when you are getting sworn in, because we'd like to go over our tie and jacket and put the pressure on them.
I think that would be good for both towns.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
Absolutely.
Well, it won't be until April 30th at least.
And, you know, you got a great state rep over there, Dennis, and, he does a great job in representing Newington. I know he does.
Dennis Malloy, yes.
I just wanna say that he,
Dennis Malloy.
Dennis
Yes.
Malloy, yeah.
He works well with us, he
Yeah.
does.
He's a very, very upfront, comes to a lot of our meetings, just to stay in touch with the people, so.
Yeah, and I went with him when we testified before the legislature to get this seat.
Right,
So I went up here twice, so Dennis done a good job with that.
But he knew
Really has.
we supported you guys on that, we thought it was a great move, we really did.
Yeah.
So we
And I don't know who he has doing his staff work, but he always knows when somebody new gets elected to a position, all the way down to our police commission, and he sends a letter.
Or he comes in
Mhm.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
It's
a good guy.
communications, you know?
It is.
It's all
Absolutely.
about communication.
Absolutely.
That's his
That
background.
makes a team a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really
Well,
true.
Entertain the motion to adjourn?
So
Nothing
moved.
else?
Second.
Second.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Welcome
You're
aboard.
welcome,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Gentlemen, it's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
I don't care what Gino says about you guys, look like a bunch of good people.